Thank you for coming to the podcast. It's Katelyn, Peterpaul.
Yes.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I know that you touch on a lot of different aspects of health and wellness. And is it mostly dermatology?
So, it's plastic surgery with my specialty is injectables.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So why don't you introduce yourself, a little bit of your background?
Yeah.
And, for what the listeners and viewers may want to know about you and kind of what your, I want to say what your current status is, but
Yeah.
also where are you, what do you want them to know about you and what you do?
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here. So my name is Katelyn Peterpaul. I am a nurse by trade. I own a private duty nursing company. I started that about 13 years ago. And I also work as a nurse injector at a plastic surgery office in Morristown. What I do basically on the day-to-day is I see a large number of patients at an office, and we talk about aesthetics and injectables. And while I'm doing that simultaneously, I have a wonderful sister who's helping me run my private duty nursing company.
So we'll get into the injectables because there's probably so many questions that come around there. And yeah, we're guys, but I think the reality is it's so prevalent these days.
It is.
Right. And I'm the worst with skincare or any of that. I just I take a shower, I'm washing my face with whatever's in
Shampoo.
my wife put in there, right? But I want to get into that a little bit. Because not only from the guy side, but there's so many questions that people have around it, right? They just don't understand it. And we'll talk about that a bit. But from the private nursing side, is it more geriatric nursing? Where do you find yourself coming in? Rehab?
And what's the name of it again?
So the company's called Premier Nursing Care. So basically, when I first started the company, it was geared towards post-op plastics because these were out-of-pocket expenses. Nursing care was not going to go through insurance, so I kind of found a need for this care and went down that avenue. And over time, I developed these relationships with these patients, and they asked me to take care of their moms or dads. So we basically formulated this around geriatrics and post-op.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So is that I guess it's definitely common in the geriatric space, right? Everybody's I don't know how many times I've talked to friends and family, oh, we got to find a nurse for this person's dad or mom, right? So that's super common.
Exactly.
I don't think I've ever heard it for post-op type stuff. And I can definitely see it's super, there's a reason for it.
Exactly.
A lot of times also with healthcare, they kick you out. It's 24 hours in the hospital and then you
Exactly.
have to leave, right? So that's
so
where you come in.
It's funny. I was working in the ICU at the time. I happened to meet Dr. Glatt's scheduler, and she was telling me about Dr. Glatt. He was getting really busy, but the way that he was trained, he had private duty nurses at his residency. So immediately I was like, of course I'll work, a couple days in the ICU, which is grueling work, and then I'll see patients after plastic surgery, which they're young, they're healthy, they're recovering. So I would go see them after surgery, included in the cost of their surgery, ironically. And then I would go home with them. And then my father, being the attorney, was like, you really can't legally go home with these people. You need insurance, you need malpractice, you need all these things. So I really found there was a need, and then I had a solution. And so it went from me, a friend of mine, and another nursing friend of mine, to now I have a team of 64 nurses.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you do any maternity stuff, anything like that as well?
So we started going down that road of nursing after babies, but I find that a lot of the nursing costs are more expensive than hiring a doula. So they kind of, not push us out of that market, but if somebody really wants a nurse, we have them.
Yeah.
However, unfortunately, people have baby nurses who aren't real nurses that will stay with them after having a baby.
Yeah, I know as you get into more affluent areas, they have the ability to do things like that, right?
Exactly.
Night doulas, and
Exactly.
it gets crazy.
You could delegate it and pay for it. Why not?
Yeah. So now I'm going to call it, just because of my ignorance, the classic nursing side of things, right? And that doesn't really translate as much into the injectables, right?
No.
It's almost like a total separate practice in a way, right?
Exactly.
So how did you make that transition?
So
Because there's probably a lot of nurses out there that are like, man, I would love to get out of the ICU every day, or they're just in. I take my hat off to nurses, like the stuff they deal with. I was like, I don't
Yeah,
like
some of the stuff they must see is crazy.
yeah.
And
Like
then-
if you've been in the hospital, you just hear somebody just like moaning, and you're just like, oh God, I think I could never
They're
be a
literally
nurse.
saints.
Right?
I've been in the hospital, like my kids, I literally should have a wing at Morristown. My daughter's had 5 major surgeries. Last one was 8.5 hours. So I was actually going to call you for the nursing care
Or
on that
anything.
one. They literally
don't
kick
even
you right
hire.
out.
Yeah, no, they're like, oh, you're
Eight
good.
and a half hours. They're like, oh, you've been in 45 minutes. We're kind of busy, so we get up. So, I applaud you guys, like the stuff that they
Then
go
yeah, like
through.
those some people that are just super dramatic, right? And you're like, yeah, you just had surgery. You're probably
Exactly.
in pain. You're
Yeah.
probably
Exactly.
uncomfortable, but like, stop hitting the fucking button for 2
Right.
seconds. Like, give us a break here.
Exactly. You're spot on. I mean, the hospital is like a very interesting place, right? So I think a lot of it was the relationship I had with Dr. Glad. And at the time, he was like, I need an injector. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be good at this because I don't really spend a lot of time on my hair and makeup in the morning. I associated aesthetics with you have to be very invested in yourself.
Sure.
And he was like, no, Katelyn, you have the relationships, you have the experience. And what I did not learn or did not know about aesthetics then that I know now is that a lot of it is relationships, but also having a resourceful personality, saying, you know what, you're coming here for Botox, but your son got hurt, I know somebody. Sure. Or your mom's sick, I know somebody else. And that referral that I think that I offer, it sets you aside from anything else.
I would have to imagine too, like aside from like the aesthetic side of injecting, right? There's the medical side of it as well, right? Like you have like Botox for certain medical conditions.
Correct.
And so you probably have a better idea around how that can be used, right?
Exactly.
In medical practice versus, we call it like cosmetic, right? So you have these 2 different sides.
Right.
But then, just seeing different medical, like people come in and they have like certain medical things going on. You're like, yeah, you know what? That's probably, like, we should probably not do that today.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you can make those determinations a little bit easier with your, more extensive background.
Exactly. At the end of the day, these are medical procedures, right? And if you don't go through their history to know what products you're going to use for each patient and customize their plan, then what good are we to just say a monkey could do my job?
Yeah.
So I think that it is customizable. It is something that you have to really know their medical history, but also, understand that Botox cosmetic is, for the aesthetic side, and then there are therapeutic indications and understanding those things too.
Sure. And Botox is like the brand name of.
Exactly,
right?
of a neuromodulator.
Right.
So it basically stops the signal from our brain telling our muscle to contract. Botox is one of 7 neuromodulators that exist on the market today.
So with all the different neuromodulators, do they all act a little bit different? Like how do you determine if somebody like gets Botox or they're getting one of these other brands? Is it like your preference? Is there like with their body type? Like what?
And for the
what
males
comes into
out there,
play?
I know there's like Botox, there's fillers, like a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah.
I know all I do is write checks for that stuff, but
Just see the account going down.
I'm sorry.
if you could explain.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, my accountant told me that now people are having aesthetic budgets as part of their,
Well,
I
that's
guess,
not my house.
yearly budget.
Budgets don't exist in our houses.
A budget? People have budgets? Sorry.
A larger budget maybe for your house. That's so funny. So yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, to determine which neuromodulator is best for each patient, sometimes it is a little bit of, we know Botox has been around for 20 years, right? The aesthetic industry is so young. If you think about it, it was established in 2002.
It's only 20 years old now.
It's only 20 years old. So I know that it's the most studied drug, so I tend to go with that as opposed to other brands. However, some patients prefer certain brands. They kick in a little faster. They have different proteins. There's different mechanisms of action for each. So you have to understand that science and then understand how to apply it to each patient.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's definitely, you hear, it's like I said, so prevalent right now, right? You're
Right.
like, people get, but then I'm guessing there's also like limits to it where, hey, probably go with the simplest thing, but like, we don't use this in your forehead because it can cause this or that, right? Like there's risks to
Right.
certain things or doing
Always.
things in certain places.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a lot of people come to you that are like, I want this and this and this, and you're like, pump the brakes, lady. Like,
I think saying no is a huge part of maintaining a brand in aesthetics. I think that there are certain patients that are candidates for certain procedures, and I think back in 2002, even the way they injected Botox is different than the way we inject Botox today. So we're learning so much, but also we realize, we look on TV, we look at, certain shows and we see people and we're like, oh, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we know what we don't want to look like, but we don't realize that we can look natural by enhancing certain features to make us more confident in the world.
How much of, along those lines, like how much of it is like somebody comes in, they don't need anything, but it's like prophylactic, right? They're just like, hey, I don't want this to be a thing. So instead of, I'm going to use, you guys go by like units or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And like, is there like going along those lines, like is there people that are like too young for it, like on that? Like,
yeah, this is the hardest topic because there is science and reasoning behind starting young because you are preventing those lines from forming. But also it goes along with any young person, being so involved in the way that they look before they really have that confidence in themselves. So I think that there's also a personality interview. And what I mean by that is a person coming in already super augmented? Are their nails very long and their hair, they have extensions and they're not really happy with who they are? And then we kind of divert them and say, you know what, I don't think that this is the right time for you. And that's just part of the practice.
And that has to be big on the like plastic surgery side too, right? Like,
Yeah.
What's the relationship there? So is there like a threshold where you're like, hey, this is not Botox, this becomes plastic surgery at that point, right? This is like, you need a facelift, not a filler, right? Like how do you guys work together in the practice to kind of refer each other in a way, right? And say like, and I guess there's also newer procedures that are coming out every couple years, every year, right? Like there's, I think I've heard of like threading and like, like where they're, so there's some, and it's crazy to me, right?
It's
like
wild.
some of the stuff you guys do to your face.
No, even for me,
coming out. And
I can't. It's wild. I mean, even for me, I have to keep up with patients who bring things up. I'm like, wait, I haven't even heard about this yet, So I think
it's a TikTok will do to you.
It's exactly right. So I think a lot of it is I'm so fortunate to work with a plastic surgeon. I'm fortunate to work with amazing estheticians too. So I have my limitations in what I do. They have their limitations in what they do, but they all kind of coincide.
Right.
Even after a facelift, patients still need Botox or will require filler because we're losing bone from our face every year. We're losing that tissue. So even after a patient's had a facelift, they're like, Katelyn, I don't get it. I'm still having these folds. What's happening? Well, you're still aging, even with your facelift.
Sure. How much of it's like to like losing bone or muscle or just like structure in a way, right? Versus collagen and, just like your skin itself is aging, right?
So genetics play a huge role. Honestly, it does. Our lifestyle plays a huge role, how we treat our bodies, sun exposure, things like that, our gut health. But I think a lot of it is understanding that it's not personal to each it's not personal. So meaning that we're losing this bone, we're losing this tissue starting in our 20s. So when our skull is literally shrinking as we're aging, so our fat pads can't really hang on to that bone, so it falls down and forward. So when we talk about facial aging, it's not like, oh my gosh, I hate my face, I feel fat, I feel this. It's like, listen, this is happening to every person. What can we do to you specifically to make you feel more confident about this process? And that's the battle.
Gabe's feet can shrink a little bit, we'll be all right. So walk me through this. Somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I want to get Botox, get rid of crow's feet, right? They come in. I'm guessing some sort of, take the mental health aspect side out of it, but there's some sort of analysis that you make and say, hey, like, we can't fix this without fixing this, right? Because this is just gonna, dissipate or whatever the case is, right? And then I'm guessing, like I said, skin type, right? Whether they sweat a lot and like all these like different factors come into play of how long it's gonna last and all that fun stuff.
Exactly.
But I know too much about this shit.
I know. I'm like, wow. Have you had Botox before? And why aren't you coming?
I just know again.
Yeah.
I guess my question is like, somebody comes to you, like, how are you making that determination, and like how much of in not a negative way, but how much of it is like a salesy, like, hey, we really, if you want this to work correctly, we need to do X, Y, and Z. Right. And it's not a sales function, right? But it becomes like an upsell because you don't know what you need, right? And as a medical professional, you're saying, we need X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Like I'm getting my shoulder's totally fucked. So I'm getting work done. But like I went to 2 different orthopedic surgeons, and like the first one, did his x-ray, did the MRI, looks at it. He's like, okay, we need this and this. And then I went to another one. He's like, got the wrong MRI. Let's go for this one.
Wow.
Right. So I went for different MRI where they did like a contrast MRI, and they like separated the shoulder a little bit so he could see it. And he's like, okay, you feel pain here because this and this is done, but you couldn't see it on the other MRI. We see it here. Right. Like from a medical perspective, there's just, I don't know if it's experience, it's this, but like you come up with, this moved because of this moved because of that moved. We need to start here.
I know.
Right? Like how often does that happen? And what does your analysis look like as somebody comes into your office?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So I think a lot of it is approach, right? So a patient comes in, I hand them a mirror right away, and I say, what brings you in? What bothers you? Or, tell me a few things that you like about yourself. And then we go through their analysis of how they're viewing themselves. And the way that I describe it is I'm going to provide you education on what I know. And then I'm also going to provide you an assessment on what is happening to you specifically. And I think that the approach of you tell me, I'm going to tell you what I know, we're a partnership. And it's a long play. Yeah. And if what I do is a money grab, then you're not going to come to me in 3-4 months. And if what I do is something that is okay with you and we're going to see together, and if there needs to be a tweak, we can address it in not a way that's like, I don't see what you see, in a way that's truly empathetic and understanding, then we're going to create a long-term relationship, which I find the patients that really stick with you over 2-3 years are getting the best results because I'm getting to know them. I'm seeing them talk, express. It's not this 2D image of what we're seeing on social media. Yeah. And then we're developing this relationship where I'm able to customize things as we go. And I'm knowing your face, I'm knowing your story, your history, everything. And I think that's the best way.
How cumulative is it over time, right? So is it like the first treatment it looks best and then we're just kind of maintaining it? Or is it like, okay, first treatment's going to be, we're going to get us 40% there. Next treatment, we're going to get another 20%.
Yeah, in your job, how much is that reactive?
Yeah, so we call that preventative versus treatment, right? So a treatment for Botox is someone who has those lines that are already etched, they're coming in a little bit later and they want to go back, right? And so I think a lot of that is, listen, please stick with me. This might take up to a year, but it's going to be consistent treatment every 3-4 months. And the goal is to not let those muscles make that expression to soften some of those lines. But guess what? You're going to need some skincare treatments. And guess what? You may need a little bit of filler to help support that structure or support those muscles. So that's a different treatment plan than someone who's coming and saying, hey, listen, I know I'm going to start getting those lines. I see one forming. And that's going to be hey, this is the best for you. But it's a different kind of treatment plan.
Yeah, so like on that end, like I'm a photographer, so when I look at stuff, I notice everything. I'm sure you're the same way.
Please don't notice that I need Botox right now.
So like if you're looking at me right now, like I have another friends in the industry that you know.
We're gonna play that game in a little bit. We're gonna have you analyze game space.
Let's analyze game
space.
We're
doing it.
We can do that next. But like like what do you do for something like most guys have that big line, and then they're like, and then they'll get made like if I know if he went in there, I'll make fun of him a lot. But like what kind of stuff do you do for the like every guy has those 3 big lines
right?
there.
Exactly. So I think a lot of it is understanding anatomy. So as a male versus female, there's different anatomical structures, different aesthetic goals, right? And then different muscle strength. So we start by taking those pictures at baseline. I then I feel each patient's muscles, which is strange for them and me, but it's actually the way that I'm able to assess how strong you actually are, which is a lot of it's based on genetics. How our parents emote and express is how we express. And so then I'm able to tailor a plan for you with recommendations of treating all 3 areas of the upper face, which is the 11s, the forehead, and the crow's feet.
11s.
The glabella, yeah.
Write that one down.
You guys are good. I'm telling you guys are really good. And then I bring patients back in 2 to 3 weeks once that treatment is fully kicked in. If they need additional units, our practice complements those additional units. Gotcha. So that's kind of how it works.
That's cool.
Nice.
No,
yeah.
I think it for me, it's kind of just, I'm sure there's people that come in that take care of their skin well, and like it's a total different approach when you know somebody has like, you know, they've taken the care of their skin, and they're, you know, using sunscreen. They have like, you know, $5,000 worth of product in their house. Like,
it's wild.
you know, I argue with my wife about this quite often. I'm just like, what do you need $150 bottle of?
I know.
Like, and it just gets crazy. And they have all like, now as technology's coming around, like it's customized, and I'm a lifelong learner in my mind. So I try to like educate myself on a lot of these things, but like, you know, I love the health and wellness space a lot. And when I start, you know, you go down like Instagram and you go, but like there's so much new stuff out there. It's like, hey, just send in a swab of your cheek and we'll give you a face cream that works.
I know.
And so when you have a client that comes in that does take care of themselves, and like, you know, you can trust that they're going to do the right, because there's got to be an aspect to that, right? It's like, hey, I'm going to just, if we do this, you're going to be back in 2 weeks because you don't take care of your, you know, you're not doing anything.
Right.
Is their approach very different?
Yeah, so I think that the ones that are more self-aware have first of all, they're analyzing themselves a little differently than those that aren't self-aware. But also they're doing the things that create the insurance policy for their treatments, I call it. So everything that we do in aesthetics, I mean, there's different layers of your skin, bone that you're approaching. And I think that if patients don't take care of themselves, their gut, which translates into your skin, which translates into supplements that you're taking, which translates into medical grade skincare, then they're not going to see the best result with any treatment that I do.
So if I could like interject on this, so like, you know, we talk about social media and TikTok, like there's all these things. You're a medical professional, very successful in your field. Like what type of stuff can people do that? Like what are the, like, I know there's a million myths. You talked about gut health, you know, you said that like 2 or 3 times. You talked about taking care of your skin. Like what are some of the, like the most important things that you would recommend to upkeep this stuff, and then actually preventative style too?
And just to piggyback on that, how different is like medical grade, like prescription based medications or cleaners, or, you know, like they're versus what I can go buy at, you know,
anywhere, CVS or, so I think, okay, so basically when it comes to medical grade, I will say that you don't need as much of that product because the active ingredient is that much higher to allow it to be sold at a medical office. So I think that a lot of it is seeing the right esthetician, the right medical provider to say, okay, let's just start fresh. What are the things that you're currently using? How do we eliminate some of that stuff? And we'll start from basics to see what really does work. Because a lot of times people have a 12-step routine that's not necessary at the time, and they need a lot more of that product to get the results that medical grade you don't need as much for. So,
what's the deal with like? There's like all this new organic stuff and the skincare products for this and that, but then I also hear that, is it Korea that's like super big in this, and like people are like traveling there to actually get their supplies, if you want to call it that.
This stuff, huh?
There's a lot. So what's so hard for me to even speak today about it is that 5 years ago, we had different theories. 10 years before that, we had a whole different thing. So nothing that I can say today, it's not Bible, because it's just based on science. And science is going to continue to change, and then we have to evolve. And some things are trendy. I hate to say it. I mean, I'm not knocking Korea skincare, but I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know enough based on our studies. But I just think that we have to go with what works based on science. And then once we have the science, then we apply. And then once we see that application in use and we see results and we have good pictures to be able to tell that difference, then you know, okay, this works for this patient. And I hate to say, but sometimes it is a guest test and revise. So based on a patient with this skin type, based on a patient with this type of fold, this is what I find works. And then you kind of go from there.
Yeah, no, it's like for me with all this medical stuff, I'm intrigued by what happens overseas a bit, just because of like our medical community or our medical regulation is.
And even the stuff in food, like that's a big thing. Like what I give my kids, and like the top 10 worst snacks to eat, like Cheez-Its and goldfish.
Exactly.
Or go check like an Oreo.
Right, no one's going hungry anymore.
Or like an Oreo in Europe is like a total different ingredient set than it is here.
You're right about that.
That's nuts to me.
I know, it is nuts
that
to
we
me.
let that happen.
I know.
Right?
Oreos are good. Oreos are very good.
Yeah, they're good. And I think with them from the medical side, it's somewhat more prevalent, right? Because there's treatments for everything from, skincare to cancer that is already in late, might be in like mid-stage studies here.
Yeah.
That is being used widely overseas.
It's wild.
Right? It's wild. And it's
wild.
like, okay, do they know something we don't? Or is it, right? I mean,
that is interesting. It is.
and it's always interesting to me is like where, talking about Korean skincare and people going over there, it's like, is it because they just aren't over-regulating the industry? And hey, we're just, they actually have some newer stuff that's been developed because of science in the last 2 years, and it takes us 10 years to get the same shit out.
I know.
Like that.
I think we're under regulated in the chemical space. I'm sure that you'll see that in the skin stuff. Like there's chemicals that we put in our body. Like I know someone said you should never buy anything from the inside of the grocery store, only on the outside, because everything in the inside has chemicals that aren't allowed in Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's got to come into the health.
Who approves the skincare stuff? Is it FDA as well?
It's our FDA. So I think a lot of what we see, there's food, right? And we look at our food, our FDA, and what they allow in our country. We question them based on chemicals, preservatives, and all that.
They've given us a few reasons in the last.
Exactly. We're like, wait, this is red dye number 5. This is what? But then you look at the drug part, and we actually don't have what other countries have that could be used to benefit our patients. So we look at our fillers. I mean, there are hundreds of fillers that we don't have access to that we learn better actually through European injectors or other countries because they have access to. At the same time, they don't regulate the providers. So they have, an electrician in England who wants to become an injector. He can, which is wild. And then you see all these adverse events happen because these people who aren't properly trained injecting.
When you hear that about like South America, right? Like people that go down to South America for cheap plastic surgery or cheap injectables, and it's like they come back and it's like, oh, it's cement, right?
Right.
Like the structure of their faces. Yeah. Have you seen that?
I've had a patient say, "Listen, I don't know what's in my lips," and I try to dissolve it with an enzyme that we have at our practice, and it's silicone. I mean, it's not hyaluronic acid. So we run into that a lot. I think a lot of the risks that people take by getting a primary surgery is that no one will want to touch them if something goes wrong in our country. So that's great that you got a discount in Turkey, but guess what? No one's touching you with a 10-foot pole in the United States, and that's kind of scary.
Sure.
Yeah,
that definitely is scary, especially, listen, there's probably countries that do it right? That are regulated to an extent, and they have true medical professionals. And then there's countries that
Turkey's got that new hair transplant thing. I know a couple people have gone to. I know I actually have 2 friends that they look great.
I know. And then you're like, when? Like you took that
from the back of your neck and they transplant each one.
I know.
But, like I heard that one, you said Turkey. I just thought about that.
Yeah. Turkey's like that big country right now that everyone's going. Yeah.
But so now also on the fitness end of stuff, all of us are involved in that. I know that has a big in health. That's one of the big things that we would love to talk about here. What type of stuff do you do like daily? What's your daily routine look like for fitness, and what do you kind of recommend to patients and our viewers?
Yeah.
Like what are some of the steps that they could take to increase their, I don't know, are there steps to increase collagen or any type of stuff like that?
I think, obviously health, it goes, skin deep, right? So it's what we do cardiovascular. When you see like a overweight cardiologist, you have a hard time taking them seriously. So I think that being a healthy person is crucial to being in healthcare. For me personally, I like to work out 5-6 days a week. I could always be better with what I'm eating, but truthfully, a lot of what I do is not just for my physical health, it's also mental health. So I'm a really big visualizer. So before I start my day of seeing patients, I'll go to the gym, I'll work out, but I try to visualize my day. and like see, you know, how things could happen and what I need to do to pivot if things happen. And that's huge for me. But even for what we do with injectables, collagen's a huge part of it. So certain supplements, you know, my marathon runners, although running is really great for you and I would love to run a marathon too, it actually, you know, degrades that tissue. Yeah. So they end up needing more product because they look more aged because of that loss. So
I shouldn't run the marathon that I just signed up for in December. I'm running my first one in December.
You really? Can I run with you?
We're running in Rehoboth Beach.
In Delaware?
Yeah.
Halves are the perfect.
So if you want in.
I agree. Halves are perfect. I've done a lot of halves. Right. You train 10.
At
I'm not about the halves.
16, 17, you get, like, I actually went to my doctor. I'm like, it felt like I got hit in the back with the knees. And I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, well, you're 250 pounds. You're not supposed to be wrestling, running that long. But
I'm just going for it.
That's great.
The halves are fun. You're going to be.
Have you done a half?
I've not.
So you're really just going in.
You're going
100%.
Right in.
Deep.
Wow.
Why not?
I respect that.
That's just my, like, I wouldn't, if I ran a half and it sucked, I would never run a full.
Right, I get what you're saying.
So if I'm like, fuck it, I'm just
a half you could do.
Half you could do.
You could do.
Yeah, I did a 100-mile bike ride 3 weeks ago now. So that was my first century.
I've done a couple of those. Me and my sister used to do those.
See, when do you find time to do all this?
That's a good question.
You guys are both like, I can't.
Yeah, we do.
You got to get up at. I get up at 5, and I'm sure you do.
You know what they call the sleepless elite.
Yeah, I'm a nighttime, like I'm a night owl. I do everything, like
that's awesome.
Put the kids to bed. That's when I go to the gym. And then I'll like be amped from going to the gym and just do something else. And I'll get back on the computer, go back to work. Like that's the hard part is just finding time. So my wife's awesome about it. She goes to the gym too. So like, we try to swap out.
I like that.
Right? Especially like on a Saturday, she'll go to the gym in the morning. She's an early waker, which I'm not. So
yeah, awesome.
She does her thing in the morning, comes back. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the gym or I'm going on a bike ride. That's the hardest part with running and biking, by the way, is just the time. Like I could go to the gym and knock out a workout in an hour and a half.
You're going for a 4-hour ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weekends maybe?
Yeah, just weekends. Like I don't get out during the week at all.
Yeah,
like, once in a while, like I'll jump on a trainer at the gym or something.
Yeah.
But like if I'm actually getting on the road, it's on the weekends. The way that I figured out that I actually do it is one accountability partner. Like, a couple of like the other friends we have, like they'll be like, hey, I'm going for a ride on Saturday.
Yeah.
And that keeps me.
I like that.
And you wear the full suit.
Full suit.
I was wearing the full suit
First
too.
of all,
I can only imagine what my 14-year-old daughter would do if I rode with my full suit through town.
I think you should. If she starts dating, I think you should do it.
This is the way I feel about it. Okay. One, I've seen a lot worse looking people in full kit, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's confidence.
Yeah, like I'm fully okay with it, right? And like sometimes I'm like, fuck, I look good, right?
Right.
Like especially in the morning, I woke up, I haven't eaten yet, like we're in.
We get a picture pulled up for this.
Yeah,
exactly.
Trust me.
Exactly.
But then like, first of all, I'm 210. Like I'm big on a bike. Like I look like Donkey Kong on a bike sometimes, and I'm just like, okay, I'll pull up. We'll be doing it, and they're like all these guys, and they're like 140 pounds, 130 pounds. Like who's 150? I'm like, no. Like I won't chase you up the hill, but I'll beat you downhill.
I love that.
That's the other thing is with all of this stuff is like I can't, like, you're somewhat limited by your body, right?
Yeah.
Like going up a hill on a bike at 210 versus somebody who's $150.
Yeah.
Like there's no mechanical
physics
that could overcome me pulling an extra 50, 60 pounds up a hill. Yeah. Like I don't care how strong my legs are.
Right.
It just doesn't get me there.
Yeah.
And I'm only like a couple years in, but I've gotten so much significantly better. I feel in better shape. Everything's working a lot better. I started like TRT like a year and a half ago, and like it literally changed my life.
That's awesome.
Like I work in a desk pretty much all day.
Okay.
I was going to the gym, but just like not recovering from it. So I would like go do a CrossFit workout or something and like hurt for a week and a half. And most of it was probably like food, lifestyle, like just not help. So getting into that, got hooked up with a doctor for TRT. We started like going through it, tried like peptides and a couple things. And I was just like, you know what, this is just too much. Like, I just want to go like, just give me my one shot, little B12, little vitamin D, and let's call it a day.
Right.
And I listen, it's not for everybody, don't get me wrong, but it literally, like, I would never be riding a bike every day.
That's awesome.
Like, I would definitely have felt like crap waking up. Like, it was like Tin Man.
Yeah, like I started in November, kind of after talking to him about it.
Yeah.
And I literally, I'm 45. I'm almost 45 now, so I'm getting old. So like, it's like
you guys have more energy than any people I know my age.
It's the best thing.
Yeah.
I would recommend it to anyone. Like the amount of, the biggest thing is people are like, what's the difference? My joints just feel better.
I love that.
And I actually, going off the skin, like I feel like my skin feels better.
Right.
Like I just feel.
You feel
like
better.
I'm 25 again. Like
I struggled with my skin a bit with I'm taking Accutane now.
Yeah.
It's really my back, like just from the testosterone. But like I remember being in high school and I had a similar issue.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I get blood work every like 3 months just to make sure like I keep it
Smart.
physiological. Like
that's the best part about TRT for me because I went a whole decade without going to the doctor. Now I have to go to the doctor's office every week.
Sounds about right.
So it's like, they're like,
great,
you gotta
though.
get a
That's
baseline.
great.
Like, so they're checking my cholesterol.
never
I yell
done
that every week. for
Do you
that.
get competitive with yourself? You're like,
Yeah,
this needs
I
to go
actually want to
down.
get the numbers in the right spots. It's
Yeah.
like, except for cholesterol.
Yeah.
It's cutting out the cheese and
I'm
meat
super
and
bad
stuff.
with that stuff. Like I look at I'm like analyzing it, like why is it this way, and like
Yeah.
looking at supplements I'm taking, and like
Yeah.
okay, did this affect it? Did I work out the morning before the blood? Is that why like my lipids are a little whacked out? Right, like I go down rabbit holes.
So like on those numbers, they have like the medical grade supplements.
Yes.
Like, is there anything, like I love asking people about this because everyone like, ashwagandha is a big thing that people say. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
So like, are there anything
Yeah,
that you
so I mean,
like recommend to patients or recommend to general people for that?
yeah, so I recommend zinc supplement only because it helps the duration of Botox, believe it or not. Zinc does upset your stomach, so I recommend taking it at night.
Makes me nauseous every time I
Yeah,
take it.
gummy form at night. I know gummy form is sugar, but whatever. The other thing, collagen's important, but then collagen also has some negative skin effects sometimes. But I always recommend seeing a holistic doctor too, just to like talk with them about what your levels are. Some people have, I think as women, I shouldn't say this, but we're all out of whack. I know, we are kind of out of whack, but we're not balanced.
I'm not going to argue with that.
So I feel like there's not many women out there that are like fully balanced with their estrogen, their progesterone, their testosterone. So it's nice to see what we're lacking, right? But I actually have some really cool patients who work in derm, and I feel like I should be paying them when they're sitting in my chair because I pick their brains as to diet and what's happening with skin health. And it's wild what's coming out now with actually eating meat and the collagen that's found in meat. And actually, that's the best form of collagen we can get. And the people that struggle the most in her chair are her vegans, her vegetarians, because of that lack of collagen from animals.
I'm good.
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, but like it is kind of wild that, we go through all these trends in nutrition.
Even like the cholesterol side of it, right? For how long did they say, oh, like red meats are bad for cholesterol, eggs and egg yolks are bad for cholesterol?
Right.
Now they've pretty much debunked that, and they said, hey, like your cholesterol levels are from eating foods with cholesterol. It's not really related.
Right.
Right?
There's
Like,
a lot of genetics involved.
There's a lot of genetics involved,
Yeah.
and just your genetics changing a little bit over as you age as well,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Like your ability to clear that out. So, but that's the wildest thing to me is now things we've been told for
I know.
how long of like, how many egg whites, right? Everybody's eating it, but meanwhile you're stripping half the protein out of the egg.
Exactly.
And all the good stuff because you didn't want the cholesterol.
I know.
Meanwhile, you could eat now we know that it doesn't relate, right? And I mean, I think it's just our scientific process around studies has gotten so much better. Our ability to analyze studies at broader scales massively better. And I have to imagine that's changing your industry a ton as well. Like
Totally. Everyone wants to know Ozempic. Think about Ozempic, which is, it's needed for some people and I support it and we're going to figure it out. I mean, in my industry though, My
see it a
patients who
lot.
are taking Ozempic, I mean, they're losing a lot of volume from their face. They're losing some of that muscle. So it is affecting injectables too.
Is that like Ozempic face that people talk about?
Ozempic face, exactly.
It's a real thing.
Right. And I guess for some injectors, like, yes, ching ching, but you're chasing now. You're chasing that volume back, which is
And is that just because they like were heavy, now they've lost weight, and or is it like actual like structure of the face, like muscular structure of the face changing? Like everybody knows that, hey, if you lose weight, whether or not you're utilizing Ozempic, right, a portion of that is always because you're in a calorie deficit.
Right.
You're going to lose muscle mass.
Exactly.
Right. It's just how much of it. And I've seen studies on both sides of the Ozempic thing saying, okay, if you work out and you maintain, you can maintain it,
right,
but you're going to be in a calorie deficit, so you have to
figure that out.
You have to figure that out, right?
Yeah.
You have to like prioritize your proteins and like really try to keep
exactly your energy levels
up.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it is, I think the doctors and the medical professionals that are prescribing it need to look at the patients and say like, hey, are you going to work out? Because like my dad was on it for medical, like he actually had diabetes and it worked wonders for him, right? He lost a ton of weight.
It's great.
But he was never instructed like, hey, you need to keep moving.
I know.
Like he got super weak on it. And I was like, you got to keep moving. You got to like, even if it's just a walk, like you got to do something. Like it makes people, especially in the older community, like very physically weak, which now we know is it just accelerates all-cause mortality as well.
Exactly.
Right? Like weakness is a huge problem.
Exactly. I mean, listen, it's a huge money-making industry. I think it works wonders for people. I think that the practices that do it right are the ones that have the resources surrounding Ozempic, whether it's nutritionists, trainers, people that can actually read blood work well, things like that. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing it out there, and then people are having to figure it out for themselves. And if you're looking at the average person, they already didn't know.
Yeah.
So if they didn't already know, and they're used to going to McDonald's every day, how are they going to be educated after all this? You know. So
no, I think they have to educate people with it, and then really they should be under some sort of strict guidance if they are going to be on it, and they have to keep up with it.
Exactly.
I mean, there's nothing good about being overweight.
Right.
Like being especially like morbidly obese, like we know that everything skyrockets, right? Your mortality is like gonna skyrocket, right? Or your chance of it. The what's crazy to me just is that when people take that path, it shouldn't just be the easy way out.
Exactly.
It should be part of a regimen.
Exactly.
Right? And saying like, hey, let's get you to lose some weight, but guess what? We'll give you a little bit of a help here with the Ozempic, semaglutide, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But let's also, you need to get prescribed physical therapy. You need to get like there's things that need to happen that people don't do.
Physical therapy thing, I agree with that. Like, or at least as you said, a balance.
Yes.
Should have to go through a class.
Right.
But
with
they used to do that. If you wanted to go get like a lap band, right, whatever, or like get your gastric bypass, they wouldn't give it to you if you were super overweight.
Exactly. And they did a psych analysis or psych panel for you too. Like they made sure you go see a therapist first and do all that. Yeah.
Because you're just going to eat through it.
Exactly.
Right? It's like it's not going to change your so for people that take it, if they should do the similar. They should, it should be more of a medical practice, a medical procedure around a condition versus, hey, let's just sell it on the street corner.
Yeah.
So, next topic on to the next thing, because we can talk about it for a while.
I know, seriously.
I know that, but I want to hear about the farm.
Oh, God.
And I'm looking to do chickens. Do you have chickens?
So my sister has chickens. I really need to get a coop. That's my next.
Okay, that's the big thing right now. I'm trying to do the setbacks where I could put it in my yard.
Yeah.
My wife's not really into it, but my two buddies are going to start, like, we'll build it. We got the foxes.
If you get a good coop, I hear that if it's, not foolproof, they always can escape, but there are so many amazing coops out there that'll make it easier for you. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a chicken expert, but I'm not even a farm expert.
So you just bought the farm. Tell us about the farm a little bit.
So I was living in Summit. I knew I wanted to purchase something. I mean, the housing market was a little crazy, but this house came on the market in Bedminster on 69 acres of land. And I saw it come up, and right away I was like, I need to see this house because taxes are lower than what you normally pay, in the area.
Because it's farm assessed.
Farm assessed, and all that. So I went to this farm, and there were all men looking at this house, right? Like men who have horses. I have a horse barn, actually. And they're all going around on like the guy's UTV, and he looked at me up and down. He was like, she's not going to be buying this. She's here with her husband. So after about, I would say about 2 hours of walking through the property, I was like, this is it. I'm getting this house. And my mom's like, Katelyn, I think a lot of people are interested. Like, as your realtor and mom, like, do not get emotionally attached. But right away, I could just see it. Like, I didn't know what it was. I didn't own a pair of, like, boots for the outdoors or anything like that. But I knew that I could grow something bigger than myself, and that was really cool. So make a long story short, after 6 months of, like, multiple offers and him eventually coming to mine, he said to me, he's like, you were the last person I thought that would buy this property, but good for you. And so right away I got some goats.
Did it come with animals, or you?
Did not come with any animals. He had 2 horses, and he obviously, he's boarding them somewhere else. But I was like, I need farm animals.
Some goats to cut the grass. Just let them go.
I'm like, let's go. So I got some goats. I really want cows, and I want sheep. But I also need someone to help me. So I've learned to delegate in this process, by the way. So that's a huge part, is trusting the people to help you. And then one day this will probably be my retirement plan.
That's awesome.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
One of my neighbors has chickens, and like we get eggs from them all the time, and it's different.
Different.
It is
They
very
taste different. They look different.
Yeah, I mean he's like all about it. Watches what he feeds them. Like the fox are an issue.
I know.
And he like.
Well, that's what I'm worried
You have
about.
to really watch them.
I know.
So how do I explain? Like, my kids are going to name the chickens, I'm sure, and then the fox get in there. That could be
I know,
bad.
and you need a rooster. Oh God, I know.
Well, you got to keep them
So wait,
separate.
you do need a rooster? That was the other
I
myth
think
I heard.
per every number of chickens you do, because they help with the eggs and they help keep the chickens safe.
My neighbors will love that.
But they are loud, and some of them are mean.
Oh yeah, I got attacked by a rooster once.
Did you really?
I swear.
Oh,
When I
you
was
would know
younger.
better than me. I mean,
When I was younger, we had like an ice cream place, and they had like chickens, and like they had a rooster running around. This thing like full blown came after me.
he saw something in you.
Yeah, I don't know. I was
He
like,
saw
I think
something
I was
early
probably
on.
messing with it,
Yeah, I'm
but
sure
no
you
joke. I might still have a fear of roosters.
I get it. I mean, a little thing coming at you. I mean,
It was not nice.
no.
Yeah, no.
So what are other plans for the farm?
Yeah, I mean, my father has a group of guys over every Thursday night at his house. And every Thursday night, he calls you Friday morning, we have a plan for your farm. Like, he thinks that I can't handle it, so he tries to formulate plans for me. So I am growing vegetables right now, starting small, and just figuring it out. I mean, I want to grow lavender. I have all these like grandiose ideas. But I mean, really the world in my mind is my oyster, but I have no idea.
Just a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, a lot of time.
And I don't really have that. I mean, I have no kids right now, but it's just like the early mornings. I'm already up feeding these goats and doing the things. But as long as it brings me joy, I'll figure it out.
Like a property manager of some sort.
I know,
like,
farmhand.
I think it's like I guess there's ways to have hobby farms, and the animals are some animals are a little bit easier than but like trying to plant vegetables and like actually work a farm like that. I mean,
the vegetables are tough. You got to like pull the weeds and like.
I'm not.
I delegate some of my tasks. I'm not gonna lie. Like when cleaning out the barn, I have somebody come every couple of weeks and help me. I think a lot of it's delegation. I hate to sound like that, but you know what you want to do, and the things you don't want to do, you hire out.
Yeah,
And a lot of your family close by. Like, I know you have a huge family,
I'm
right?
one of 7 kids, so a lot of my siblings are in Basking Ridge, Peapack. One's in Bedminster, so it makes it easy to have. When I go away, they come feed the goats. So
Yeah. So I don't know if you can get a goat sitter, right? They have to have that.
they're easier than dogs. You don't need to walk them. Give them like a scoop of medicated pellets, some hay, some water. They're happy.
And they're good.
Yeah.
Goats are funny.
Yeah.
Are
They
they
are
big goats or
funny.
little goats?
They're the Nigerian dwarf goats. They're not like
So they just
big.
like, do they pass out?
So mine don't pass. Mine are like, I shouldn't say this. They're screamers. They,
You ever watch those videos where the goats are just like, "Ah!"
I pull up, they're like, meh, like constantly like at you. And every like UPS, I mean, people like really do like them because they're personable, but they're they're crazy. I mean, they'll like, I've let them out a couple times. They follow me around. I mean, they know who feeds them, but they're very people friendly.
Do they ever like come in the house?
I won't let them in the
You don't
house.
let them in the house?
Because when they
they'll
poop,
like poop
it just
anywhere,
falls out of their
and they'll
butt.
just they like jump high, right? Like they'll like climb up
They'll
on
climb
stuff.
anything.
Oh yeah.
They'll
It's
climb
wild.
anything. Yeah. I'm surprised I haven't been climbed on yet.
You
But.
gotta set up. The goats are funny. I would love like probably goats, horse,
Yeah.
a couple horses.
Do it.
Yeah.
Hey,
I gotta get out.
I just want chickens. I have a whole area in my backyard. That's,
Chickens are a lot of
I'll never
work.
use.
Yeah, but here's what happens. It starts with chickens. Like it's starting
It's a
with
gateway
goats.
drug.
It is. They're gateway animals. And then all of a sudden you're like, I could do this. And then your world expands.
My dog would just want to murder a chicken.
His dog is.
It's
dog?
just a husky. All he wants to do is kill things. That's like his only goal in life is killing prey animals.
So I have like two little squirrel dogs. I have the exact opposite. I grew up with a Malamute, but I have two Maltipoos. So I'm afraid that they're gonna like not stop barking at the chickens if we get the chickens. But we'll see how. I think they could be.
You
friends.
know, I think you figured out as you go.
Yeah, one of my goals why I want to farm, I think, is just to have a bunch of dogs.
Hey,
Like that.
I've never had a dog. I have 6
Yeah,
goats, but
they're a
no
lot of
dog.
work. They're almost.
Yeah.
They can be more work than the kids. They're a lot of work. Raising a good dog is very difficult.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people have dogs that are just not good dogs.
Yeah.
Like are just like they were a good dog or they're well bred, but now they're just basket cases
Right,
or
right.
they're just But like raising a good. My dog comes to the office with me. Like he's
Oh,
awesome.
really?
Yeah.
That's great.
He's
they have a full.
Yeah.
At the office, we have like dog. Everyone's dogs are there.
Yeah.
Wait, that's
So-
great. I wish
Yeah.
my office was like that.
I
His
mean,
headshot. I did his headshot for his.
Did you really?
For his,
yeah.
his
Yeah,
doors
my
right
door's
there.
with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm big on the dog thing. I would totally have like if I had the room, have like a kennel with like 5 or 6 dogs at least, and just
Okay.
Yeah, my wife's family bred shepherds for. They have a kennel in Andover.
Wait, really?
Yeah, so they're up. It's not really a farm, but I guess it is farm.
That's a
But,
farm?
yeah, it's farm. But they and she bought. Now I have these little squirrel dogs with purple leashes that I walk around.
Listen, I mean, I think you can't put people in boxes. Just like they can't picture you with these little dogs, they can't
Yep.
picture me with goats and all these things. You know,
Yep,
you riding a bike.
nobody would think I ride a bike.
I used to ride a bike. I think I got too.
They do
heavy
make
for
fun
it.
of me at the office.
It
They're
makes
like, "Are you
weird-
gonna ride your
my
bike to the
started
office one
making
day?"
weird noises as soon as I got over like 240.
You know.
240, 250. So,
I don't ride bikes because I never had a bike that was short enough for me to actually get off the bike. So I'd have to just fall off at 5'1". My mom was like, "All right, here's a bike that our neighbor had. All of you guys can learn on this one bike." It was meant for someone who was like 5'7".
Yeah.
So
My-
yeah.
So another thing I wanted to touch base on,
Yeah.
like I know you're big on the networking. We both went to
Yeah.
Villanova, Visa up.
Yeah.
But like, what type of networking stuff? Get off the farm stuff. I know you're big into trying to start some girl power networking
Definitely.
and that type of stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in the area. I mean, I have the pleasure of meeting so many awesome patients and just people associated with these patients that I noticed that even post-COVID, people were coming to me as one of 4 people they knew to refer them elsewhere. So what a girlfriend of mine and I decided to do, or what we want to do in the fall, is create like a women's networking event where 20 women will speak just about their experiences in life and give advice, and then have an opportunity for everyone in the room to just talk with financial planners, people in entertainment, people in whatever industry, awesome moms, like whatever it is that makes you amazing, and just to be able to kind of talk with these women. So
We run a couple like women's committees at work, and
Do you?
yeah, for like in the mortgage space. So like
awesome.
Mortgage Bankers Association, they get the women together, and they listen. They're great, like just to get everybody together.
Yeah.
It's odd. Like from the operations side of the business, it's like predominantly women, right? But it does like bring like a little bit of a sense of community together.
I like that.
For the women in the business, and they've done a lot of good with it, like just advocating, and
Yeah.
there's things that guys just don't think about
I know.
that women do, right? It's
Sorry.
A lot I've
like
been told.
not to
Not
say
all
it's like
men,
more
but-
emotionally, but like
Yeah.
they'll talk a lot more about like charity type of events. Like we'll have like MBA events, and they'll make sure that there's like a charity aspect to it,
Right.
right? And Like they've done a lot around that's been super important. So I think all of that stuff is good. And some women are like becoming so much more prevalent, especially like in our age and our demographic in the workplace. Like it's very difficult to have a one income household these days.
Yes.
Right. So you have a lot more women that are getting into the workforce and taking on professional careers, and so bringing some pathway to it and sharing, seeing the entrepreneurial side of it.
Yes.
I think only makes that better, right? Because
I agree.
I don't care who you are. It's difficult to have two parents working in a house. So taking on that entrepreneurial side of it, and like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like nurturing it within a group and showing what's possible and giving ideas like that, where somebody can feel more empowered to work from home or to start a business is life changing.
Yeah, the big ideas are like how do you talk to, like time management with, like how do other people manage their time?
I agree.
With stuff. I think that's one of the big things with networking, like that you get ideas from people on how busy people, successful people, how they, their day to day.
Exactly.
So, something you said with their, visualization in the morning.
Yes.
My workout in the morning, I work out from like 5 to 6 miles, more like just get my anger out, so I can take the opposite route. Like I'm not really
It's always
meditating.
mental health.
That's my visualization is anger. Yeah, I get that.
It's always mental health.
Always.
Working out's always mental health.
Always.
But there's like the whole aspect of trying to figure out where like everybody like fits in from a workplace perspective has been a conundrum that we haven't figured out, right?
Yeah.
Like, but there's a lot of, I just think that there's a lot of opportunity there for women to get more in the entrepreneurial side of things and bring that flavor to whatever the business is.
Yeah.
Because I don't care what anybody says, it's a different view of it, right?
Exactly.
Like it's a total different view of a situation or of a product or like, your business from the cosmetic side of it. Like if it's the women have ran it for how long at this point, right? Like I think guys it's getting more prevalent, but like it's driven by the needs of women.
Exactly.
So who would know it better? Right?
Exactly. And like having 5 sisters too, it's shown me that were raised by the same 2 people, and we're so different in a good way.
Can't even imagine what that house is like, by the way. I have
brother
2 little
and father.
girls, and I'm like, oh, this is a nightmare.
It's actually
all
great
they do is
in the
fight.
end. They'll always take care of you.
Yeah.
But
I have one girl, and like what, she's 14. I don't know when that gets better. Your poor
I
father.
hated my father at 14.
But what did he like? What for a full decade? He was just maybe more than that.
He would hide in his garage. I think he came home from work. He would eat dinner, and he'd get dressed and go in the garage. And he's like, "Kelly, you deal with it." And like we were fighting over clothes, boys. I don't even know, N64, like soccer balls. We were fighting over everything. And then we were just like angry because we didn't know that we were, going through hormonal spikes. And
just everybody synced up at the same time.
Yeah, we were just all like, my poor mom, she just, I don't know, but yeah.
I can only imagine being in a house with 5 girls. Like that would be.
Does it get any better?
I think we've all grown to realize that for me, family is like the most important thing. So no matter our differences, who we marry, if they get along better with this one's husband or whatever happens, like we will go to bat for each other, you know? And so I think that's...
You got like a whole team now.
Yeah, like I'm like, who's mad at you? What do you need us to do? Like we get into that like fighting mentality. But again, we're all just so different. So I think that's what brings people together is that in a room, I want to learn. Right? Like I want to be the student sometimes or all the time really because I'm a sponge to mortgages. I'm a sponge to what you do. And I think that the moment that you say, okay, I'm an expert in everything and I can handle everything, we're really losing.
You can't.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, that's one of the reasons why we did this podcast.
We just want to learn about everything.
I said to Gabe, I'm like, he's like, do you want to just do like industry? I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I want to bring everybody in that excels in their industry or can bring value to listeners or viewers and really like open eyes to other industries that we don't have exposure to.
Right.
Yeah.
right? Like,
That's awesome.
as two guys, like, we don't really have exposure to your industry,
Botox, you guys
right?
don't,
Like,
He knows more than a lot more than I thought.
Yeah.
I don't know why I like
Being
sometimes
married
just,
and working with women, I get that. Yeah.
The I do have two questions
Yeah.
that like somebody had brought to me because when I told them I'm like super excited that you were coming on. So one of them was, you know, with certain, and we'll get back to the work stuff. So with certain injections, like, does it make certain conditions worse, right? So if you get like Botox in your forehead, if you have like hooded eyes, I think is like what happens there. Like, could it make it worse? Is there ways that you could inject to help?
Yeah,
The
so
situation?
that's a really good question. I think that it's important to know that muscles do different things. So if someone just wants their forehead treated without treating their 11s or their crow's feet, they're not going to get that open lift because our forehead muscle is an elevator. When treated with Botox, it's going to make it heavy. So our 11s and our crow's feet are muscles that want to contract down. When treated, it's going to open. So I think doing things to a lower dose in areas that we don't want to make heavy, and then treating the other areas well, is only going to make the best.
Right, and that's just part of the analysis you'll go through on
Exactly.
consultation,
I know.
saying like, hey, we probably need to put a little bit here just to not make this worse.
Exactly. And some people aren't candidates for certain procedures, so it's important to know that too.
And then is there any, do you guys do anything from like a muscular perspective outside of the face? Like, you know, people get Botox in like their calves or their feet to try to loosen things up, or, you know.
So I actually
He wants to ask about Botox, is what he's asking.
No,
Is that a thing?
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say something else, but no, I inject my own traps because, as you know, like it's a
like this
secondary
all day?
muscle and it becomes a primary muscle. So it's good for posture. It's good for abdominal work to actually have your traps be a little bit released. I inject calves for my horseback riders have overextended calves, and then we do hyperhidrosis with armpits.
For
so
sweating?
For sweating. I do. My sister has like very sweaty palms. She's in the OR sometimes. I inject her palms. So there are other indications that exist out there that are amazing, but it's just knowing your scope of practice and what you can do.
Does it last, like in the face, how long does it last?
3 to 4 months on average.
Is there other parts of the body like, you know,
Armpits can be 6 months, traps can be longer too. We do masseters for tension. The dose equals duration. So areas that are getting high dose, you're going to get more of that duration. But I would say for most patients in the beginning, I'm like, come back in 3-4 months, let's reassess,
you have like guys come to you with like weird shit, like
women and men. And I just sit there and I think, okay, I have to answer this without laughing and professionally.
I would never be able to do that.
not laugh about that.
Yeah,
No.
like penile injections is the big thing right now.
Is it?
With PRP.
So the doctor I go to for the TRT, he does that, I guess. He has like a sign of all this, and it's like PRP, like vaginal rejuvenification, like all this stuff, and I'm like, I don't even like know where to start with that. But
I know what I can be good at or excel at, and then everything else, if somebody else wants to be good and excel at that, go for it.
Because you're like a trainer with the face injections, right?
I am, I'm a national trainer for Revance, which is a company that has a neurotoxin and fillers, and I'm able to teach other injectors, which is awesome. I love being able to do that, but I'm still a student every day. I mean, if I don't continue training and learning, then I'm never going to get better.
And industry changes every day.
Industry changes.
If you become complacent in it,
I'm going to watch this 5 years from now and cringe that I said certain things, So I think that what's amazing about Dr. Glatt is that he allows the practice and myself to carry multiple lines to customize specific products for different people.
Yeah, so there's better products for different people.
Exactly. It's like everything else, So
good stuff.
I like it.
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming and spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me.
This was
has been
awesome.
Fun. Yeah.